Oh, so special to be back with you. But I wonder how, if it's going to be a weak session with this group, because a speaker always wonders about what's the group like. And I was reminded, I did a book, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I found out in the book on what makes a great fundraiser. So I interviewed 50 men and women I considered to be the great fundraisers in the country. And one of the men I interviewed was a Dr. Robert Schuller. Does that name mean anything to you? He was a TV evangelist and a guy that was always very excited about life and was just vibrant. And I was going to spend the whole day with him. And that was very special because in the States, he was really one of the top TV personalities. I was going to have a whole day with him. And I wondered what my day would be like. So his office was almost the size of this room. And I was looking for clues. Don't you all look for clues? Photographs on the wall, and if he's playing golf, then you talk about golf. Come on, you all do that, don't you? And or if there's a sailboat, and maybe you've done this. In the States, I've done it, and I've stopped saying this. Oh, what beautiful grandchildren. And he says, no, they're my children. In the States, we have, I'll give you a minute to digest this. We have 9 million men who have children younger than their grandchildren. Exactly, wow. And the reason that's important to a fundraiser, by the way, is that, remember I said yesterday, husbands and wives discuss their philanthropy, but if it's a second wife, she is even more important in driving the gift. So there's nothing on the wall, and I'm walking up to Dr. Schuller's, where he's sitting back there, and there's a table in front of him. There's nothing on the table. You could do open heart surgery on that table. There was nothing on it. And in back of them was a desk with a Bible. And I thought maybe I ought to say something about the Bible, but what am I going to say about the Bible? So anyway, I'm walking closer and closer to the table. He jumps up from his chair and he says, Jerry, how are you? I said, I'm fine, Dr. Schuller. He said, I'll try that again. Jerry, how are you? Well, I said, Dr. Schuller, I'm fine. He said, try it on me. I said, Dr. Schuller, how are you? He said, great. And do you know when you say it, you really feel different? Anyway, how are you this morning? Now, wasn't that better, David? Thank you. Yesterday when I left you, and I just want to pick up the pieces from yesterday a little bit, I did say that you probably are not going to raise more money from corporations. I think corporate giving will stay about the same and maybe drop off a little bit in Mexico. I could be wrong, but already the signs are there that corporate giving isn't going to be the same. And foundation giving is going to be stable and maybe drop off. And you can count on government giving, government grants, to be fewer. So that means your focus needs to be on individuals, men and women who can join your great cause. And among that group, I want to remind you that women will play such a significant role, but in the years ahead, even more significant. So for your board, and remember I talked about the board, your board ought to be up here instead of down here. Your board, look for women who ought to be serving on your board, because once they get on the board, they will be so excited about what you do. And then I mentioned yesterday, we used to say 80% of the money comes from 20% of the donors. And what we were finding now, in the last maybe 10 years ago, 90% of the money comes from 10% of the donors. But now it's even more so. Now it's 95% of the money comes from 3 or 4% of the donors. I just called the States this morning on a project that we're doing for a home for delinquent children. And when we analyzed where our gifts are going to come from, 80%, it's going to be about a $10 million campaign. 80% of the money is going to come from the top 30 gifts. Top 30 gifts. So here's what I want you to do when you get back home. It's one of the first things I want you to do. I want you to look at your donor base and determine who are our top, 50 sources for gifts. Maybe it's more, maybe it's less. I don't care if it's less, because everything will depend on your focus. And I want you to focus on that number of people. And I want you to provide good stewardship to those people. I want them to be reminded of how important they are to you and how much you love them. And I want you to visit. I want you to be in contact. Now, on your sheet of paper, draw a circle. This is going to be a pie chart. You all know what a pie chart is? Yeah. And I'm going to use the English. P stands for performance. I stands for image. And E stands for exposure. Performance, image, exposure. Do you have that? And we did focus groups. And we said to the group, for the organizations that you give to, is it the performance of the organization? They do a really great job. Or is it the image of the organization? They've been in business for 40 years. They've been around a long time. Or is it the exposure that the organization has on you? The number of times that they're in contact with you. Is it performance, doing a great job? Is it image, or is it exposure? What do you think they told us? Someone. Huh? I missed that. What is that?
The work they were doing.
The performance. Well, you would think that. You're not going to like this. 65%, do your pie chart, 65% said exposure. 20% said performance. That means that doing a good job is not good enough. Do you understand that? If you're not telling people on a regular basis what you are doing and getting in front of them on a regular basis, it doesn't matter how good a job you do. They will never know. And that's why I recommend that there be a newsletter that goes from the CEO to those top, remember, you're isolating your top, what did I say, 50 sources, and I'd like a newsletter to go to those top 50 sources that will tell the story of your organization. And I want it, it's only one sheet, front and back, and it's signed by the CEO, and it's the story of your organization and your performance. So that becomes very important. And I want that to go, are you ready for this? I want it to go out every 4 weeks. Exposure, exposure, exposure. Can you do it, do you think? I tell you, it's the most effective thing you could possibly do in getting people into your hug. And that's your job, to get them into your hug. And then to remind you also that, and I'll say this when we close too, you are the spark that lights the blaze. Think of how horrible it would be if you weren't doing what you're doing, providing the service that you are providing. Where would these kids be, these women, the people you're serving? What would happen to them? It's only because of you that they are being served. And I'm thinking, what a noble profession you are in, being able to provide this kind of service. And then I want you to divide up, and I'm going to have you people turn around, okay? Turn around.
Nos vamos volteando como ayer, ¿no? Si quieren aprovechar las mesas, nada más es voltearse y exacto.
Turn around, and then you people in the back come together in a circle. Pull up your
Los de
chair.
atrás al centro y ya con eso nos ponemos. Listo.
Oh, take your notebook, take your
¿Quieren pueden
notebook.
traer sus sillas exacto, los de hasta atrás?
Count the pages. Are you with me? Count the pages. Count 16 pages. And feel lucky I didn't ask you to count 123 pages.
La hoja debe de ser, ¿qué hace grande un procurador de fondos? What makes a great fundraiser?
Everybody have it? Got it?
¿Todos lo tienen? 16 hojas y ahí lo van a encontrar, ¿no? Desde el principio, contando la primerita. Ahí está.
In your group, In each group, I want you to end up with what you consider the top 3 qualities, skills, and talents that make a great fundraiser. I'll give you 10 minutes to work on that.
¿Todo el mundo tiene claro las instrucciones? Si no, levanten la mano y les explicamos. ¿Ok? There will be a person who will report in each group, right?
Yeah, I'll report. Yeah, I want to report from each group.
Como ayer, seleccionen a la persona que va a hacer el reporte, ¿no? Por favor.
What are the skills, talents, and attributes of a great fundraiser?
The idea is that they agree on something, right? On the first 3.
Top 3.
Top 3.
Top 3. I wanted to do a study and then a book on what makes a great fundraiser. Because this is what we're all about, isn't it? And don't we want to know what makes a great fundraiser? Sure. And then I wanted to find out what are the skills and talents that are important and how many of them are inherent, you're born with, and how many of them can be learned. And if you can learn them, why aren't we teaching them? That seems so simple. So I made a list of 105 skills and talents. And I put them on 3x5 cards. You all know what all remember what a 3x5 card was? Yeah, okay. And then I went and talked to about a dozen people whose judgment I consider to be very wise in our field, and I asked them to hone the list, to make the list smaller, so that the list that you see is from my 105 skills and talents narrowed down. And I suspect that you found, as I found, that all of these skills and talents are important, aren't they? But which are the most important? And if they can be learned, why aren't we teaching them? So let's start with this circle, David.
Listo, chicos. ¿Quién va a ser el speaker?
The 3 skills we choose were be creative, have initiative, love your work, and be a good listener.
Good, okay. Which of those did you rank number 1, or did you not think?
Love your work.
Love the work. Very good. I'll tell you, very good. That was good. I wish now we had a sheet. So say that again. Love the work, be a good listener, and be creative. And what did you say?
A ver, aquí en este grupo, ¿quién va a hablar? Listo.
Fue algo muy difícil, pero consideramos que la primera es amar el trabajo, ser creativos y ser capaz de inspirar la acción.
To be capable to inspire to action.
Ah, very good. To inspire into action. Yeah, because when you're calling on someone, you want a response. David, let's try this circle.
Okay. ¿Quién va a hablar acá?
We choose be persuasive, be able to inspire action, and the last one, be creative.
Be
Creative.
Isn't that interesting? Be creative, be creative, be creative. And I have never, working with a group before, had that mentioned. Isn't that interesting?
Great.
Now, is that, I'm thinking, is that something maybe in Mexico that is really important?
Okay.
Pues también nos costó trabajo, queríamos todas. Vimos que había unas que se incluían dentro de otra, entonces escogimos 3 principales. La 1, amar el trabajo, amar el trabajo, que ahí mismo podría estar incluido el tema de tener el 2, ser buen comunicador, que implica ser buen oyente, y el 3, tener altas expectativas.
And to have great expectation.
Ah, good, that very good. And then this group last.
¿Quién habla acá? Okay.
Muchas gracias, señor Panas. Nosotros escogimos 3, pero nos sobraron otras 3 todavía. Creo que ser perseverante, ser capaz de inspirar a la acción, pero sobre todo, ser impecablemente íntegro.
Good, wonderful, okay. You folks did very well. Let me tell you what we found. And I didn't choose any one of these, of the top 2. I did not choose the top 2. Isn't that interesting? Until I did my study. I showed my list. Remember I told you I chose about a dozen men and women to look over all of my cards? And Phyllis Allen said, you left out one of the most important. And I said, I can't believe I did. What is that? And she said, you left out integrity. And so I made that impeccable integrity. That's a lot of integrity. And as it turned out, every single one of my 50 wonderful fundraisers listed that as being the most important. Isn't that interesting? Then what I did, by the way, I went to the chairman of their board or whoever their supervisor was, the CEO or whoever, and I asked them to fill this out on each person I had interviewed. And they chose integrity at the very top also. Now, that integrity is not anything you can take a course in. You either have it or you don't. It's within you. The other thing I found, which was interesting, all of my wonderful 50 were faith-based. Now, they weren't all regular churchgoers, but in their family growing up, each of them felt that there was a spiritual values climate within the family. So they all had that in common. Well, number 2, and I want you to note this because it's not only important in what we do in fundraising, it's important in everything we do in life. Number two, I had number two as being a good communicator, but my thinking was, if I do a brilliant job in presenting my program, that will do the job. But I was wrong. Being a good listener and listening came out number two. And what we know now, being a good listener is the most important tool in your fundraising toolbox. But here's the problem. Most of us listen to respond instead of listening to gain information. Do you get the distinction? Do you? So your job is to listen to gain information. And if you listen carefully enough, you will know what your donor, your investor, you will know what your investor is interested in, and you will know, if you ask the right questions and listen, you will know how much you should ask for. So your job is to listen. And I want to take a few minutes now to talk about listening, because you haven't had a session on listening. I'd be pretty sure about that, because even as important as it is, nobody really talks a lot about it. So I wanted to talk about it. And your job is to ask questions and to probe. And a question not asked is a door that's not opened. So your job is to ask. And when I visit with somebody for the first time, I'm asking questions. I've got a lot of questions and I think in advancing that will open the door. Well, for instance, does the name Tom Monahan mean anything to any of you? Tom Monahan? Well, let me introduce you to Tom Monahan. I've worked with him on maybe 3 campaigns, and I thought I knew Tom pretty well. I said, we're having dinner in Naples, Florida. And I thought if I could ask Tom this question, it would open a flood of information. But I thought I knew the answer because I knew him so well. Well, I said, we're having dinner. I said, Tom, what's been the greatest achievement in your life? Isn't that a good question? I thought he would say, well, I started with a kitchen that was 12 feet by 10 feet, and that grew into 7,000 pizza parlors. Tom Monahan, Domino's Pizza. Okay? But that's not what his greatest achievement was. Or that he owned the Detroit Tigers when they won the World Series. That's pretty big stuff. But that wasn't his greatest achievement. Tom, what's been the greatest achievement in your life? He said, the day I was accepted in the Marines. Now, is that not an unusual response? And it opened up, you all know what the Marines are in the States. That opened up a whole flood of questions that I asked. And he talked about values, country, flag, Catholic faith,